My philosophy is it's not how you fall, it's how you get up. And do you have the dignity and the courage and the integrity to get up and keep your moral compass together?
When Sharon Stone is mentioned, most people immediately think of one of the most famous sex symbols in Hollywood history. They remember her confidence, striking beauty, and the roles that made her famous on screen. But very few know that behind that glamour is the story of a girl who grew up in a small, snow-covered town in Pennsylvania. A girl who always felt different from everyone around her and harbored a desire to step out into the wider world. Sharon Stone was born on March 10, 1958, in Meadville, a peaceful town where life unfolded slowly and many people's futures were often predetermined early. But from her early years, Sharon showed that she was no ordinary child. She learned to walk and talk earlier than other children and quickly demonstrated exceptional academic abilities. At just 5 years old, Sharon was promoted to a higher grade because her academic performance far surpassed that of her peers. While other children ran and played in the schoolyard, Sharon often sat alone with her books. She was passionate about learning, curious about everything, and spent hours watching old black-and-white Hollywood films. From a very young age, she believed her life wouldn't be tied to that small town. However, Sharon's childhood wasn't easy. Years later, she openly shared the traumas and hardships she experienced as a child. Family difficulties left invisible scars, but instead of breaking her, they forged her inner strength. At 14, a serious horseback riding accident left Sharon with a severe neck injury. For many young people, this might be a life-changing shock, but for Sharon, it was just another challenge to overcome. Her intelligence earned her a college scholarship at a very young age. As a teenager, Sharon worked at McDonald's while studying to support herself. But then a seemingly small event changed her path forever. After winning a local beauty pageant, a judge suggested she leave Pennsylvania, go to New York, and try her hand at modeling. It was bold, even crazy advice. But Sharon Stone had never been one to shy away from big decisions. In 1977, she packed her bags and left her hometown for New York, with little but confidence and determination. Just days after arriving in the big city, she signed a contract with one of the world's most prestigious modeling agencies. The first door to fame had finally opened. But Sharon quickly realized that modeling wasn't her ultimate dream. Deep down, she wanted more. She wanted to tell stories. She wanted to be an actress. And the most challenging journey of her life was about to begin. Before becoming one of Hollywood's most famous faces, Sharon Stone spent nearly a decade feeling like she was standing on the doorstep of success, but unable to enter. After leaving a thriving modeling career in New York and Europe, she returned to America with a decision that puzzled many. While thousands of girls dreamed of landing the contracts she had, Sharon gave it all up to pursue acting. She believed that beauty could open the first door, but only talent would ensure lasting success. Her early days were far from glamorous. Sharon lined up with hundreds of unknown actors just to get a wordless extra role in Woody Allen's Stardust Memories. It was only a few short seconds on screen, but for her, it was the beginning of a much bigger dream. Throughout the 1980s, Sharon appeared in a plethora of films and television shows, but mostly without leaving a significant mark. She worked hard, auditioning constantly, getting rejected repeatedly, and then getting back up again. Hollywood seemed unsure where to categorize her. She was too beautiful to be considered a truly talented actress, yet too intelligent and ambitious to settle for being just a decorative figurehead on screen. Roles came and went, and many opportunities that seemed within her grasp ultimately went to others. At times, Sharon felt like she was running on a treadmill, constantly striving, but making little progress. The first turning point came in 1990, when she was cast as Laurie in the science fiction film Total Recall, alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. The film became a global box office phenomenon and audiences began to take notice of the blonde woman with the piercing gaze. But Sharon understood that this wasn't the opportunity to change her life. She needed a bigger, bolder role that would make Hollywood see her in a different light. No one knew that just 2 years later, a character named Catherine Trammell would appear and transform Sharon Stone from a familiar face into a global cultural icon. That role would propel her to the pinnacle of fame, while simultaneously opening up challenges she had never imagined. In 1992, Sharon Stone made Hollywood history with her portrayal of Catherine Trammell in the film Basic Instinct. Prior to that, a number of famous actresses had turned down the role due to its daring and controversial content. Sharon wasn't the producer's first choice. In fact, she was the 13th person considered. But after months of auditions, director Paul Verhoeven was convinced no one could bring the character's danger, allure, and mystery quite like Sharon Stone. When the film was released, the world went wild. In a short time, Sharon transformed from an actress struggling to find her place into one of the most famous women on the planet. Her image graced the covers of major magazines, television shows constantly mentioned her name, and Hollywood finally opened the door she had been knocking on for over a decade. But what set Sharon apart was that she didn't want to be remembered solely for her looks. While many believed her success stemmed from her sex appeal, Sharon was determined to prove them wrong. She took on numerous major projects, and particularly shone in Martin Scorsese's Casino. The role of Ginger McKenna showed audiences a completely different Sharon Stone, deep, intense, and full of emotion. The film earned her a Golden Globe and a prestigious Oscar nomination. It was the moment she proved to the world that she was not just a beauty icon, but also a true actress. By the end of the 1990s, Sharon seemed to have it all: fame, money, awards, and a thriving family. She married journalist Phil Bronstein, and together they adopted their son, Rowan. Life seemed to be entering its happiest phase when tragedy struck unexpectedly. On the morning of September 29, 2001, Sharon felt an intense pain, like a lightning bolt striking her head. In just seconds, the woman who had once shaken Hollywood collapsed to the floor. What happened next was more terrifying than any film she had ever been in. Doctors discovered she had suffered a severe brain hemorrhage. The survival rate was only about 1%. While the world still remembered Sharon Stone as a movie superstar, she lay in a hospital bed fighting for her life. And that was just the beginning of the most difficult period of her life. Sharon Stone survived a lengthy surgery, but that didn't mean her battle was over. In fact, upon waking, she faced a challenge even more difficult than death itself. The woman who once stood at the pinnacle of Hollywood now had to relearn the most basic things that most of us take for granted. She had to learn to walk, to read, to speak, and even to remember simple things. Her brain had been severely damaged after days of bleeding. At times, Sharon saw the world through a distorted lens. Her vision changed, her language abilities deteriorated, and her body no longer reacted as before. While millions of viewers still remember her as a cinematic icon, Sharon was taking her first steps like a child. But the losses didn't stop at her health. During her recovery years, her marriage fell apart. A protracted legal battle cost her custody of her beloved son. At the same time, much of the wealth she had accumulated during her heyday vanished. Sharon revealed that when she was lucid enough to check everything, the tens of millions of dollars she had saved were almost gone. From being one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars, she had to start almost from scratch. The most heartbreaking thing was that when she returned, Hollywood had changed. The directors, producers, and opportunities that had once belonged to her had all moved on. The industry she had spent her youth conquering seemed to have no place for a woman who had just suffered a stroke. However, instead of wallowing in bitterness, Sharon chose to build a new life. She continued acting whenever she had the chance, adopted 2 more children, and dedicated much of her time to humanitarian work. She became a powerful voice in AIDS prevention campaigns, working with numerous international organizations and participating in educational projects around the world. Alongside this, Sharon discovered a new passion: painting. In the quietude of her studio, she discovered a different version of herself, not a movie star, but a woman enjoying life in her own way. Today, Sharon Stone doesn't appear on screen as frequently as before. But perhaps that's not the most important thing. Her story isn't about a famous actress who lost everything. It's the story of a woman who witnessed death up close, lost almost everything she had built, yet was strong enough to rise again and start anew. Sharon Stone once said that it's never too late to be yourself. And perhaps that's the greatest victory in her life.